Welcome to the April meeting of the Ward 8 Neighborhood Planning Assembly. I think we adopt the agenda first. Is that correct? You welcome a motion? Motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to adopt.
Second? Oh, it was posted. Is there any way to bring up the agenda or?
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, cool. All those in favor of adoption, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Hey, Krista. And now we'll move on to introductions. We'll go around, name, pronoun, street. Ryan, Nick, he, him, King Street.
Tom Carroll, he, him, South Union.
Maddie Posig, she, her. What else was I supposed to do? Sorry.
Street.
Yeah, 100%.
And Brenya, Bradley Street.
Milo Grant, visiting from Ward 2, Crowley Street.
Merrick Broderick, Maple Street, he, him pronouns.
Hello, I'm Krista, she, her, and I live on Main Street.
You guys want to introduce yourselves as you sit down? Okay. Sorry, not to.
I'm Amy Malinowski, she, her. What else? I live on South Williams. He also does.
Hi, Stephen, he, him, also from South Williams.
Thank you, guys. All right, public forum. I guess this is where we were going to do introductions. But anyways, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. We can recognize you and you can make your comment. Krista?
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not familiar with this meeting or what goes on, so I'm learning. I came once, and then there was a long duration where there were no meetings. I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about tonight. As I'm aging, and I recently had two major injuries. I fractured my shoulder. I think a lot more about safety and mobility. I'm pretty short, so that also makes things tough. What I'm also interested, we don't need to talk about all that tonight. What I'm interested in tonight is also talking about things that are safety for everyone. And I remember during COVID, one of the things that they did is they adjusted and outlined some expectations for students and people in our community. And I recently thought that might be a really creative solution for some things for our community as a whole. I often support things that I don't use, like the skate park and different things. I always want to be a good community member. But right now I have a hard time feeling like I'm supportive because it's getting harder we have some businesses is closing 1 a.m. and others that are very early. That's getting a little more difficult to balance because it just used to be a couple of days and now it's multiple days. So part of what I was thinking is, I want everyone in our community to hopefully feel like they're part of what's happening. And what I'm hoping is that we can create a culture that feels safe for everyone. So if I'm going to just use Ryan, I don't know if he does this or not, but if he's out having a good time with his friends until 1 a.m., I'm happy for that business. I'm happy for him. But I would also like to create a culture where people say, oh, there's residents here who are sleeping now. Just like for me, if students needed a break from this meeting, I'm going to support that. And I'm wanting to hopefully extend that to the folks that are so challenged in our community. I've never wanted to put restrictions before on things like soliciting for money, but I do know now that there's in the work that I do, there's people who come here and solicit for money who are actually housed, and a lot of the folks who solicit have income, Some of them don't, and things can get held up while they're waiting for documents that they need. So there are times that people need additional support. But part of what's been really disconcerting to me is some of the folks have almost shifted from asking for support to harassing people. And that for me is also an example of what I mean, where I want to say our community wants to support you, but we don't support that. I remember last year there were a lot of folks who were not needing wheelchairs, but in wheelchairs in the driving lane where the bike goes, wanting to get a car's attention, for example. There was another woman who used to stop cars at the crosswalk and ask for money. And when they wouldn't give money, she would then scream and berate them. So I think there's some differences. So what I'm hoping is that the other folks in my community might have thoughts about how they feel about that and what that would be. But I would love, there's folks now when they're looking for housing, a lot of them have to go through a program. I think it's CVOEO who does it. I'm not sure anymore, but they go through a good renter program so that they can then go to someone and say, here's my challenges. I'm a good renter. And I'd like to extend those things to our whole community so that everyone can say, oh, I'm a good renter. Here's what our community expects. And it sounds a little weird, but culturally, other places, you wouldn't do certain things. There's parts of Japan where you wouldn't dare to drop a speck of garbage, or parts of California where you wouldn't jaywalk across the street because just culturally there, it's unaccepted. So that's a little bit of what I'm excited about. And I'm gonna stop talking now because I know there's other work and other people here, but those are some of the things on my mind. And it's hard because I've been an advocate for people with challenges really my whole life. My family started helping people who were homeless. I can remember being 6 years old helping people. So I just want to say that because I don't have I don't have an axe to grind with anybody really, but I'm hoping, like I would like, for example, if some of the businesses were actually at our meeting here, because then you can talk to them about, hey, you're making this choice, but I live 2 blocks away from you and you're not thinking about how that impacts me. So I find it interesting because a lot of businesses need our support right now. But some of the choices that they're making don't make it possible for me to do that in my life, or are counterintuitive, if that makes sense. So, but I'm very grateful to be here, and I look forward to meeting everyone.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Are there any residents? I didn't want to. Yeah, I think the residents should go first.
Oh, my apologies, Councilor Schachner. Yes, Ali, if you'd like to introduce yourself now, although the next item on our agenda is city councilor introductions. So,
oh, sure. I can do a quick introduction, and then if anyone else wants to speak before the councilor updates, that would be great. I'm Ali, pronouns. I'm the city councilor. I live in Ward 1, and it's vacation week, and I'm in Boston with my kid. Really sorry in person, but I look forward. So nice to see many of you there. And look forward to joining next week back in person.
thank you. Good catch. Yeah. Ali, your microphone's coming in and out, FYI. I don't know if that's something you can adjust, but we can hear you. It just kind of fluctuates.
I'll see what I can do. Well, if there's more public comment.
Thank you. Public comments.
Sure. I guess so, Amy. I just wanted to say, like, I know in the past, I think it's been a little challenging to figure out like the specific constraints and context that Ward 8 is in, like how to have NPAs be a flourishing, compelling space for people to want to engage in. And I think like there are challenges. I'm excited to think about like I think there's also a lot of opportunity that maybe doesn't exist in the same way in other wards, like opportunity for a lot of like intergenerational engagement, opportunity to be engaging with downtown businesses and that community. So I guess this is just me saying like I'm excited for anybody who's like excited to think about like how do we revive this monthly practice in our community in whatever shape that looks like. And I'm excited to explore that, like, yeah, what ideas people have.
Thank you.
I'm Maddie Posig, Hunger for Terrace. I just want to sort of continue off of what you said. I'm retired, and so I don't have a lot to do these days. And so one thing I do is read Front Porch Forum, and I look at the other neighborhoods that are kind of near the downtown one that we're in. And I notice, but I think every other ward's NPA is, there's like notice probably like 2 weeks before the meeting, and the agenda is there, and there's usually like a dinner involved, and it just sounds a lot more robust than Ward 8. And because I'm retired, I'm not always in Burlington, and so a lot of times I'm out of state, and so I'm not as grounded into what is going on right here in the community. And so it would be great if, you know, we posted like when the meeting is going to be, because sometimes it's canceled, sometimes it's on. And if we're trying to attract more people to come, we need to do a better job of letting people know, you know, when it's going to happen, what we're going to do, et cetera. I mean, Anne's a great neighbor, and she kind of gave me the link to where the meeting was on the city website, but I'm not always that tech savvy to know exactly where to look. Whereas Front Porch Forum is, you know, just comes in an email. And, you know, I also kind of hear that sometimes we don't have a meeting because there's nothing to discuss. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's like so much going on in our city and so many problems. And I've never been on the steering committee, but it just seems like, you know, like right now, DPW is thinking of privatizing recycling. So are we going to invite them here so we can have public engagement? Because the plus side of our being a small NPA is you could probably have more interaction with city officials. So I'm just thinking those are some ideas down the road. I mean, I know in the summer they're not held, but I find it very hard to find out when we're meeting and when we're not meeting. So just food for thought.
Agreed. I'll admit to being could be doing a better job at that.
I don't know whose responsibility it is,
It's
to
me.
be honest. Well, I'm not trying to be critical.
No, I didn't take it that way. But what I would say, and this is to members of the NPA body generally, is that the steering committee is actively looking for additional help because right now it's kind of just Tom and I. So also on that note, thank you to Stella, a former steering committee member who is moving out of the ward, for all of her hard work. But if you are interested in participating on the steering committee, we would greatly appreciate any additional assistance.
I have a question. I don't mean to go again. I want this gentleman to talk, but could you just explain? Thank you. I forget that I'm very soft-spoken and the mask doesn't help. I'm hard of hearing, so in my mind, I feel like I'm screaming at you. But I am curious, could you explain, is this a meeting that we come to where the agenda has been put together by representatives and we're just here to speak on that? Or is this a meeting where our ward comes to do like I did, say, here's some things I'm thinking about. Is this an appropriate time for this? I just want to understand what it is.
It's in, you know, anyone correct me if I'm wrong on this one. It's a little bit of both. When we set the agenda, I look at the requests that have come in to present, and, you know, those get put on the agenda. And if I don't get any requests to present, it would be great if we had the capacity to do outreach to schedule some of these meetings with DPW and other items, the why. And I think for the community engagement and May meeting preparation agenda item is sort of where I wanted to discuss those items and making May a more robust meeting in terms of agenda items to attract, better engagement. But then it is also a forum for members of the public to come in and, discuss pretty much whatever they would like to. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, actually, you've actually sort of preempted what I was about to say or ask, which is, developing somehow more energetically or more actively in an involved way agenda items by consulting with the community or somehow outreaching through Front Porch Forum is something that we need to more systematically do. And I think that Ryan and I need to discuss that and kind of figure out, some actual, some division of, work on that topic. But I think we'll do that in future for future meetings. But I think part of it is connecting with community members and opening up channels of communication so that we can receive comments from people, so that we understand what some of the issues with concerns are, what people are interested in discussing, or why they'd want to come to a meeting to begin with. So I think all of those things we need to think about logistically, perhaps, and maybe other people here, like Councilor, you might have an idea in your ward how agenda items come to your NPA committee. And if you care to share that could be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I kind of came tonight to do a little bit of quick show and tell, but I'm happy to address that question. I can speak. So we at Ward 2 have our NPA at the Old North End Community Center. And that has the added advantage of having a kitchen. So we have been well known for the community dinner that we do once a month. And then we scheduled the NPA after that community dinner. Ward 3, because I'm a district councilor, which is Wards 2 and 3, Ward 3 meets in this room. And food-wise, it's sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. There have been arrangements made where donations have been received, say, from American Flatbread, who provide dinner. So I think it does require some coordination with some of the local businesses, and then certainly thanking them during the meeting. I think when food is offered, and if the meeting is kid-friendly, that attracts more people. I think in terms of following what's being talked about in the city, because you can definitely reach out to, say, DPW. One of our conversations that we were curious about was, what streets are going to get worked on this coming construction season. We have some work being done in our neighborhood parks, and there's also the Battery Street scope study for the changes there, which are going to affect a lot of us. I think also talking about things that happen on other city council committee meetings. We had a meeting with licensing, and you wouldn't think licensing and encumbrance permits were exciting stuff, but we just approved at our last one, or 2 meetings ago, the encumbrance permit for the old Y building. They're getting ready finally to do the construction. If you actually look in the back of the building, they're already working. They're filling up dumpsters with stuff, and they're going to have construction buildings, and it'll affect going in and out of City Market. So I think taking a look at what's on the agendas for city council, and then touching base with department heads, requesting that department heads email the steering committee for things that they might be interested in talking about, and making sure that they include this particular steering committee when they make the rounds, like talking about the water bonds, things like that. And certainly it's budget season coming up. So there's going to be a lot of discussion about the budgets in May, and that's going to be really important to everyone. We're going to want to see where we land, for example, with recycling, which is a very hot topic right now. So those are some ideas that I have. And I think certainly anyone who's chairs of city council committee meetings would be happy to attend NPAs as a chair for public safety committee. I kind of already do that anyway, where I kind of plop in, but also happy to do an extended segment because as we all know, there's a lot going on around that issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
The other things I was here, I just want to do the quick show and tell. Something that I hear repeatedly and other people talk about is that they don't know what the mayor is doing or what the mayor's office is doing or how to find out that information. We don't all have time to watch every single meeting. The press conferences may be held during work hours. So I just wanted to quickly say that if we go online, and are we able to share? Okay, great. When you go to the city's website, you just search for the city of Burlington, Vermont, and then you click on government, which is in the upper left-hand corner. And then click on, click on Mayor Emil Mulvaney Stanek. And the first thing you see are the calendar for meetups. She continues to do weekly meetups in different parts of the city. A couple of them are in the morning, one's midday, and then one is later in the afternoon. So even if maybe in your own ward, it's not necessarily a convenient time, but you're more than welcome to go to another ward's meetup. And this is an opportunity to sit down with the mayor for an hour, express concerns, ask questions, and talk to the mayor directly. And then clicking on the future events, it shows where the next ones are going to be upcoming. On the left-hand side, there's a link that says to community safety, public forums on community safety. And when you click on that, what we have is information on the public forums, but on the upper side, like right under public forums on community safety, looking for recordings of the public forums on community safety, you can find them here courtesy of Town Meeting TV. And when you click on that, that's going to take you to a page that's been created on YouTube. It has all the recordings of the community safety forums. It also has the recordings of the public safety press conferences. She has one once a month where she reviews details. In addition, at every city council meeting during her updates, she very often talks about issues around community safety. There is a press conference, the second one down, with our new interim chief of police, Chief Burke. I do recommend that people watch that. And we also, on April 17th at the Public Safety Committee meeting, we had Chief Burke and Sarah George. That was a very interesting conversation. It was great to hear how the two of them will be working together. They already have a very long established relationship. And I think some of the problems that we've seen are just not going to occur now that we have this interim chief. For example, what is the status of cases? The priority response plan, how it's not working. These are things he is already looking at, and he is recognizing the problems, recognizing the problems with online reporting, and also will be assisting with people who have questions on cases. So sometimes people come and say, I don't know what's going on with this. And I ask for an incident number. I have an incident number. I can go to Sarah George. I can go to the chief and I can say, what's happening with this? And we can get an update to confirm if things are moving forward or more often than we should, we sometimes find, for lack of a better word, things are stuck or stalled. And then how do we jumpstart them? So I really also want to say that people should be vocal about if something happened, if you were a victim of crime, especially if you feel you might be entitled to some type of restitution, ask. You can ask me as chair of public safety, Mark Barlow, Buddy Singh. Those two counselors are also in public safety. You can also go to your counselor, and if they need some assistance in looking into cases, I can walk them through that process. So I think nothing's going to be overnight, but I think we're already seeing changes in how our resources are being deployed, to kind of put it, and hope to see more changes, and I expect we're going to be doing a much better job with recruitment and retention, and I look forward to that. So won't be an overnight fix, but we're moving in the right direction now. And that's really all I wanted to say. Anyone has any questions, complaints, concerns?
So again, not being here in town all the time, what is happening with like a permanent chief? Could Burke possibly become, that's his name, right?
He has not indicated that he is interested in doing that. He has given the city a 2-year commitment.
Okay.
And this is really important to have someone of his expertise who's very respected, who's known in Burlington because he had a lot of his career here in Burlington, including being a deputy chief here before he went to be chief in South Burlington. So he will be helping with that process to find a chief, as well as to help fill deputy chief positions, as well as the rank and file.
So is anything started for the search for a permanent chief, or how will that go?
That there will be a search committee that will be put together. That committee has not been formed yet. The mayor's focus was getting an interim chief, and then making sure that chief was established and letting him look at the department and examining the problems that the department has internally in order to make the best decisions going forward. But I imagine soon we'll start to hear about a search committee being formed. There's also going to be a process where community stakeholders, including members of the public, will be allowed to give input.
Okay, thanks.
Move on to city councilor, the Ward 8 and East District councilors, updates and feedback. Allie, do you want to, I guess, introduce yourself again, or tell us a little bit about yourself and what you hope to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you all hear me any better? I switched to phone audio.
A little better, yeah.
A little better? So I'm the newly elected East District City Councilor. I have had one meeting so far. So I guess sort of my first thing I wanted to convey is an invitation to all of you to reach out anytime. I'm really trying to hold these first couple of months as a listening tour of what's going on with constituents in wards 1 and 8, and how I can best support everyone. So I don't take it lightly, the privilege of representing a part of our community. So please do reach out. My email is on the city website, easy to find. A little bit about me, I work right downtown at the Flynn, and I have kids in the public schools, 1st and 3rd grade. I've spent the vast majority of my career in human services and nonprofit work, did some environmental work, then I worked with homeless and runaway young people ages 10 to 25 for about 10 years, and was very familiar with the housing world and HUD-funded housing programs, affordable housing, and then did some child welfare reform work at the national level before joining the Flynn. So I'm very excited to be serving our community. And, my top priorities, I think, echo hopefully a lot of what we've already talked about tonight, and what I heard a lot when I was on the campaign trail, which is really thinking about how to tackle in a meaningful way our affordability and housing crises. There's a lot of concerns about community safety and well-being. And so I've had great interactions with Chief Burke so far. I feel I feel optimistic that there are better days ahead, that we're doing the work, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And then, helping us continue to move on things like our net zero energy plan, and really supporting our work in that regard. As a mom, I, of course, care a lot about the kids of our community. We're a sustainability academy family. I love being a part of that community. And one of the benefits of it is it's such a diverse community, so many new American families. And so I really feel like I'm privileged to have a lot of windows into the best of Burlington, and a diverse array of little pockets of life in Burlington between my work and my kids and all of that. So I can stop there. Councilor Broderick and I have also some updates to share about council business, and I'm happy to take questions, but I can stop there with just sort of an intro about myself.
Great, thank you. Councilor Broderick, I guess you can introduce yourself as well, but you've been here, so
Yeah,
have
sure.
any updates or comments?
I mean, I can introduce myself again. I think, hello. I do know all of you. I do know all of you, but I'm Councilor Merrick Broderick. I represent here in Ward 8. I'm entering the second year of my first term. The learning curve and in hindsight, the learning curve of being a first year counselor was certainly very steep. It did. I really needed to take a lot of time to just to get my feet wet and try to understand how to best fulfill my role. And in that, I think throughout that first year, I think I've left a lot of room for improvement. And entering my second year, I hope to start to take the lead on more things as opposed to being an observer, and certainly be a much better communicator with my constituents. And I'm looking forward to fulfilling that obligation, and doing a better job at that. And certainly excited to that we now have an East District counselor. Councilor Schachter and I have talked in private multiple times. We've had multiple meetings, some of them also with Councilor Newbeezer of Ward 1. So I'm looking forward to working with Councilor Schachter on things where we can, and especially on issues that are affecting us here in Ward 8. One of the I think one of the top things in regards to that I hope to work with Councilor Schachter on is joint communications to folks in Ward 8 through means like Front Porch Forum. And so I would encourage folks, if you have any questions or concerns, et cetera, that you want to send my way or send Councilor Schachter's way, I'd encourage you to copy both of us on those emails. I think it's best, not only just to have two sets of eyes, two sets of minds on. It also helps with that communication, allowing us to be in sync, and able to talk about these things together and collaborate more. I'm definitely interested in doing that. So I guess that's my reintroduction. Before the meeting, Councilor Schachter and I kind of went over what we wanted our updates to consist of. So I guess I will start by talking about recycling. That's been one of the hottest topics ever since the administration and DPW presented their original plan to contract out our recycling service. I'm a member of the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee. So actually, on Tuesday, the two passed along a motion to the City Council that we will be voting on Monday. And I'll just read it off and then explain it a bit of what we're going to be potentially voting on, what we are going to be voting on, what might potentially be happening in regards to the next couple steps for recycling. So the motion reads to support the development of a memorandum of agreement regarding a DPW recycling and street maintenance staff recruitment and retention program to be developed by DPW management and AFSCME representatives, brought forward to the council for approval at a May 2025 meeting. So that is kind of their short-term, immediate term attempt to rectify the real concerns that our DPW city staff have given us in regards to the recycling program. It's terribly understaffed, and it's because it's terribly understaffed. I believe they only have one full-time recycler on, and they should have 4 in a healthy system. So because of that, other members of the DPW street team who have recycling as kind of a secondary or tertiary responsibility need to fill that role. And that's kind of been an ongoing problem that past administrations and past DPWs have said that they were going to fix, and that just has not happened for a variety of reasons. It seems that our recruiting woes extend beyond our police department. So this is an attempt to draft some type of agreement in the short term to most likely further incentivize those who do give extra time out of their give that extra time and effort to volunteer to haul recycling. It's not really volunteering, which is kind of the problem. So that's like trying to come to an agreement with the union on a short-term solution while we try to work out what the future of recycling is here in Burlington. The next one being support.
Ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I thought the decision to outsource recycling to a private company was a funding issue to balance the budget, basically. But
Yes.
you're telling me it's a staffing issue, and that if they had the staff, that they would be able to continue the program?
So in my assessment of what's been given to me, the cost savings associated with contracting out recycling only come up to at most $250,000 a year, which it's not a lot of money, but for what I consider an essential public good and a service that I believe needs to be retained by the city, it's not a lot of money relative to the importance of that. So the and that's the number that they gave us when the plan was not to contract to an area hauler. That was when those were and still use the city solid waste generation tax. So it's still the city's money that's going out to these private contractors if this plan were to get approved when the budget's approved or if there's an earlier vote when that's approved by the council. But the original plan was that the consumer, each resident, would have had to individually reach out to a hauler. That's no longer the plan that they're going with, but that was the plan that they said would save the city $250,000, in my opinion, because the price is being passed off from your taxes to you having to contract out with a recycling company. So now that they are not going with that plan and they're still using the solid waste generation tax, I don't know what the cost savings to the city are. Most likely now it's going to be associated with maintenance and no longer having those 4 recycling positions, which they are still budgeted for, even if we're not actively paying them, 3 of those 4 positions. So the cost savings will now just come from that, but we're still using the solid waste generation tax to pay for the recycling with a private company. So it's going to depend on the bid, how much money the city actually saves. But I would say it might not even be $250,000 now at this point because of these changes that they're making. So if you were to ask me, who I don't believe in privatizing recycling at all, what the reason for doing it is now, it would be the labor concerns. So I'm sorry for rambling. Does that help?
Can I interject too? Like, I think And I sort of similarly have been like, I thought this was a budget thing, and like now this is turning into a slightly different conversation in my interpretation, but the other counselors in the room correct me if this isn't your interpretation, but sort of initially we were presented with the possibility of cutting city recycling as part of a way to save money with the budget. But when we dug deeper and the public started asking questions about that, I think it sort of came to light that there were other reasons underlying the consideration of potentially eliminating recycling, specifically around labor and sort of the challenge in retaining and operating these services right now that sort of like are also part of the conversation. So now we're kind of having that bigger conversation around like the state of the recycling program in our city and what may be needed to retain it or to privatize it. Like it feels like it's become like a bigger conversation that sort of like putting it out there as part of the budget kind of sparked it, but there's more to it. There were other reasons I think why it was included as a potential cost saving mechanism than just sort of like purely budgetary reasons.
So what are you voting on Monday?
Yeah, so that's one part of what we're voting on Monday, to allow
The process to proceed.
authorize DPW to have to draft that memorandum of
Okay.
agreement with the union. So that's one of the things. One of three. So second of three, which is more of the more pertinent one, I'd say, because this is the one that will start the process of determining whether or not we privatize recycling or not. The council would be supporting putting out a request for price quote RFPQ to area haulers in May 2025 for a 3 to 5 year contracted operation of the city's recycling program. Jargon means looking for quotes on contracting out the recycling this time to an area hauler done by the city, as opposed to the individual consumers having to contract themselves. And then simultaneously, we would be asking DPW management to develop in parallel a sustainable municipally run operational model and full cost estimate for a recycling program delivered by DPW staff. So at a future meeting, most likely in July, what we would be getting back from DPW is two things. We would be getting the quotes of how much it would cost the city to privatize recycling, and their DPW's cost estimate of keeping recycling within the city. We would be getting both. And then I would assume that then we would be voting on whether or not we want to accept the RFP, accept the quote to privatize the recycling. If we were to say no to that, I think that would be an indication that we want to keep recycling within the city, but it's giving us that information. And then the third thing, if there's no questions, because it's long. So then the third thing, the long-term thing is request that the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee work with city staff to develop a plan, timeline, and budget to evaluate a potential transition to a fully consolidated solid waste collection system and provide the proposed plan back to the city council by November of 2025. So plan, timeline, and budget. So as I said before, whether it's an RFP or we're keeping recycling within the city, that's about a 3 to 5 year program. So what are we doing after that? Well, if we vote to confirm this motion, we would be starting the process of convening what I would most likely be an ad hoc committee of stakeholders and councilors and union representation on creating a plan to switch to a fully consolidated solid waste system, whether that is in the city or not, would be that committee's would be whatever based off of what that committee finds. But instead of just having recycling contracted to one company, solid waste contracted to one company by the consumer, same with compost, we would be drafting a plan to make sure that we are contracting for all three with the same company or doing all three within the city. So that is a very long-term process, but those are the three things that this does. Does that summarize everything, or do you have anything else, Councilor Schachter?
No, thank gosh we have a 2 committee member in the room tonight. Thank you, Councilor Broderick.
Could I
for
ask a
recounting
question?
all that.
Didn't the city council try and do, you're talking about that long term, I don't know, it's when Max Tracy was president, so I don't remember exactly the year, but I was in favor of it. You know, they talked about, you know, like one day I have recycling and another day I have the trash and another day the compost, and it failed. I don't remember why it failed. Were you on the council then? Okay.
I wasn't on the council then, but I had kind of started my public service and was starting to pay more attention to, I know it sounds terrible, but I was previously, I wasn't as engaged as I was now. There were a few things. So of course, what you just brought up is a concern now. If we have different haulers doing different things, or even the same haulers, but they get your garbage on one day and then they come back and they get your compost on another, and they come back and get your recycling on yet another day. So that's more trucks in our neighborhoods. That's, you know, noise, climate, etc. The haulers kind of got together and they were very much against the idea, and they did a big campaign against it. And there were people in certain parts of the city who liked the haulers that they were using and felt like, well, if I'm going to lose my hauler, I can't support this. So there were discussions like that that occurred. I will say, with regards to why we've gone into this deeper conversation, the issue with labor is like, well, if we can't keep people to do this specific job, then we maybe need to, they had already done what they call changing the grade, is when you change the job descriptions as well as the salary. They had already increased it, but clearly it wasn't enough. We did hear at the last meeting from members of the union how difficult it is to be forced to do a job that you weren't hired to do, and how that affects their quality of life. Other members of the union have expressed that they want the city to keep recycling, but that these other issues have to be addressed. The new haulers that we use now should be reducing injuries that were occurring, because there were a lot of workman comps claims, but we don't have that data yet because they've only been used for the last year. So we're like, hey, can we get that data so that we know that that is no longer an issue or as big of an issue? And the last thing, because I apparently am really obsessed with fleet issues in the city, is that these trucks are in for a lot of repairs, and that costs money as well. But similar to what Councilor Broderick just said, I support keeping citywide recycling for a number of reasons. I don't want to be passing that because it's not a tax, but we'd be passing on a cost, and that concerns me. Privatization concerns me, but we have to come up with something. So this is going to be one of the in-depth conversations around budgeting. Thank you.
I just wanted to also speak to your question when you were asking about this specific group and their jobs. And I hope you both will help me because I don't know the appropriate language. I'm simply paraphrasing a meeting that I went to where things were explained quite well. And no, this particular group and job was not something that the mayor or any of these folks went after specifically. Part of what the mayor's team has been doing is looking at every single city job when it came to be, why, how, and the costs associated with that. And that was started last year as part of the budgeting process, continued into this year as part of the budgeting process. And what they last year, she explained, was hard enough. And then this year is now down to some very difficult brass tacks decisions. So this was not at all part of anyone's agenda. It has nothing to do with hurting the union or hurting these workers. It is just the happenstance of having a gap, and everybody's looking at ways to adjust that. And then all of the other pieces, as people have spoken out about the parts that are important to them and all the things, it's shaped all those things. Is that right?
Yes, we continue to have a major budget gap, so everything is being looked at. I think though, and I'm probably not the only time I'll be saying this, but I'm like, do we really want to do that? To close this? But there's going to be, they call it the Marvelous Nights of May. There will be the budget. There'll be Wednesday nights in May, and it'll be all the 3-hour budget presentations with the final numbers coming out, and we're going to really see what's going to happen. There's already been one discussion for a new department, which is consolidating other departments and positions. And then I believe the next conversation will be about consolidating CETO with workforce management. So that's all part of the modern workforce development. Thank you. Yes. So there's going to be consolidation, and just everything's being looked at. And we made it through last year keeping positions open. I don't know what's going to happen this year, if we're going to be able to make it without layoffs. I mean, nothing's been said final, but I think that will end up being on the table. We have this gap, and then we've paid roughly at least $6 million out of city funds to help the unhoused, because we have unprecedented numbers of people living on the street, in part to the motel program. Lacey Smith, who is the director of CAPE, talked about the fact that there's a waiting time of months for housing advocates now. So just to get a housing advocate to talk to help you keep track of the process, you're waiting months now. It is, all the resources are just stretched and overwhelmed and not enough. And that all affects the city budget as well. Thank you.
Councilor Schachter, did you want to say something?
I was going to just jump in and share a quick update on the Overdose Prevention Center as well. But please, if there are any other questions about recycling, we can get to those first.
I guess I'll just give my last word on recycling, and then if Councilor Schachter wants to give her last word on recycling after me, we could do that. I obviously respect and I find the union's complaints extremely valid and very concerning. However, when it comes to a very popular and very effective public good like municipal recycling, I believe the city, it's a program that the city should be doing whatever it can to keep and continue to provide to residents. And so it does kind of trouble me that we're already at the point where we're looking for these quotes from private companies when, as this motion says, it says in the motion that we have not had this serious talk with the union on coming to a memorandum of agreement on what we can do in the short term to support them. And we don't even have a cost estimate yet of what it'll cost to keep recycling in the city. And that's concerning to me because it tells me that, and this is my opinion, but it shows to me that it seems like that we just aren't even considering keeping it within the city. We're just moving on to that next step. And we had to fight in the TOOC to make it clear that it has not been decided, that we're not just going with the private option. We want to see both sides of this, and they need to be given equal treatment as the council comes to that decision. So that's what I personally find concerning right now. But and I think that the city should be doing everything it can to keep the program within the city. And I hope that cost estimate will come back, and it'll show us that it might cost, even if it costs more than privatizing, I don't think it'll be to such an extent that it outweighs the number of benefits that it provides to us. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think my final word is, I also have a lot of hesitancy about considering not providing this as a public good, moving this out of the municipality. So I'm eager to see what we get back in July. And, I do have to hold that there's maybe a reason why DPW has been pushing for the privatization or contracting out. I don't feel like I have full sightlines into all the information. So I'm eager to learn more, but I feel strongly, as I think so many of us do, that the recycling we offer is a really important public good that we offer. So I'd like to see us hold on to it, unless there's some really cost that I'm not seeing or compelling reason I'm not yet grasping of why it really would potentially put us in make it a liability for us to continue doing it or something like that. But I share Councilor Broderick's desire to have this remain a city provided service. So that's, I'm hoping we learn more in July and can keep these conversations going and hopefully land somewhere we all feel good about. I know we're we didn't have I think we had about an hour on the agenda, and I'm sensitive that it's already 7:30. So I'll try to keep this update brief, but I did want to share that at Monday's City Council meeting, we're also going to be voting on sort of moving forward with the implementation plan for the Overdose Prevention Center. And this is something the city has been working on for many years, also called a safe injection site. We're now, the mayor has brought on a staff member who's devoted exclusively to helping us stand up this project. Her name is Teresa Vizina, I think is her last name. She's, I've been really impressed with her. She's fantastic. She has a long career in substance use support and social services, and just cares really deeply, not only about this work, but around doing it right and doing it thoughtfully and really scaffolding it with a lot of checkpoints along the way, safeguards, and real robust evaluation, so that we can really understand how it works and understand if and where challenges arise, and use that as really important learnings with, at the end of the day, trying to make our community safer for all and save lives. So we'll be voting on Monday. I'm just going to pull up the exact wording of the resolution or of the motion. To approve the Overdose Prevention Center's implementation proposal, which they'll then be submitting to the Vermont Department of Health. And that implementation proposal was shared in quite a bit of detail during a work session in the City Council meeting 2 weeks ago. The slides are available online on the Civic Clerk website with that City Council meeting. And if you have questions or want to go over any of it, I'd be happy to direct you to it. But I'll do my best to give just the quick headlines. So we have identified a service program implementation partner to provide the services that would be happening at the OPC. It's the Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. They currently run a low barrier recovery center in downtown Burlington, have a lot of experience with people dealing with substance use, with overdose prevention. They have a lot of deep, longstanding partnerships with other service providers in the community. And they also have a long track record of being what they call good neighbors and really caring a lot about the experience of those who are in the vicinity of their centers, of their locations. Because I know in my conversations with constituents, and it came up multiple times during this work session, that the sort of process for site selection and where this will be located is something that I think a lot of people are wondering, and is part of what will be included in this sort of phased implementation plan, is identifying that site and the community involvement in doing that. But I was really heartened to hear how much they're committed to sort of, no matter where this ends up being located, being good neighbors and understanding if and how this impacts the community, and taking steps to be good neighbors. So just to give a quick overview, it's an 18-month implementation plan with 2 phases, and this is what will be moving forward on Monday. The first is to spend the next 12 months in what they call the planning and capacity building stage. So doing a service assessment, engaging the community, sort of building the policies that will guide the center, and also selecting the site. And then starting in month 9 through month 18 will be sort of when the operation, they call it the operations and compliance phase. So securing the site, outfitting it, getting it ready, the staffing, the equipment, the training, and building the mechanisms around data and reporting and evaluation. And in the budget that they've filled out, there is a hearty line item for the evaluation component of this. And I think there's broad acknowledgement that it's a pilot, and it's meant to save lives and be a positive add to this community, and that sort of evaluating it along the way, and also reporting back our learnings, because this is obviously not something that every community or many communities have necessarily done, although there's many examples of it as well. So just sort of making that a part of it. So we will be, the plan is to vote on that, sort of moving the implementation plan forward at Monday's meeting. And I do highly recommend checking out the work session from the April 14th meeting if you want to go a little deeper. So I will stop there. Any questions?
I have two concerns, not so much a question, because I was at that meeting and there were two things that concerned me. One was that it seemed like it was predetermined that the only place it could be is downtown. The other is that one of the suggestions was that it be near the bus station, and that was based on behavior and recent drug use in that area. A lot of what occurred in that area is because some of the essential services and things that people received from the state were in that particular area. They're no longer there. So some of what people were talking about in terms of the building being boarded up and certain things that they relate to bad behavior, I don't think it's the same now as it was in the recent past. So I just wanted to say I have a concern about location, not because I think these folks can't handle it. That's part of what I'm talking about as community member, and the difference of business need versus what I need as an aging individual in my community, and also the businesses that are in that area. So I felt that the folks who spoke were very competent, and they, yes, in fact, know what they do. The biggest concern for me is the actual location, and that it just felt like everyone's predisposed that it can't only be in Burlington. What happened a very long time ago is a lot of the services that are here in town, folks wanted people who were homeless to be able to walk to. And the original thought about it was good, except now that we have these tremendous numbers, the people at the time when they were starting all of these helping things didn't think we would still have these issues decades later. So a lot of times people will say, I feel surrounded by this problem. And it's because they are, in the sense of where the agencies and helping things are for folks. So it makes sense that this site would also be part of that location and that circle. But it kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of our meeting about what we expect from our entire community as a whole around behavior, non-trespassing, and a whole host of things. I know where I live, there's not a single day that passes that there isn't someone who's trespassing on our property. And it's not always homeless people. It's teenagers, it's college kids, it's visitors. I'm often shocked. I have people who tell me all the time, I live here. And I think to myself, no, you actually don't live here. And some of the behaviors are benign, and some of the behaviors are really frightening and disconcerting. So anyway, I don't want to ramble on because this is difficult work. And this message about where to put it is going to be the same for every ward and district, because everybody's going to say the same thing. But I don't think that corner in that neighborhood is necessarily going to have the same problem at all, because a lot of the folks that needed certain services won't be going there anymore because they're now in a different location. So I just wanted to make sure that folks were thoughtful about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this process of selecting the site. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, ideas, thoughts, and so I do encourage, and I'll definitely be bringing back to these NPA meetings, like when there's community input sessions happening. But I encourage you to just sort of stay connected and involved. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion exactly where this will be located. Although there's people have hunches about certain areas or parts of town where it may land. But there's a lot of I don't think the full deep dive has happened yet at all to really grasp like where all the possible places it could be. So I just encourage you to kind of stay connected to the process, and there will be opportunities for public input.
Thank you. So as a former police commissioner, and when I also became a member of the city council, the top issue, which has been happening for years now, has been the drug crisis in the city. Going back to being a police commissioner, I talked about it ad nauseum because we could see it. I felt like wards 2 and 3, I always have said it a lot. We were the canaries in the coal mine, and we were gasping at the bottom of the cage. And then the activity moved downtown, and then our businesses started being really affected because the crisis continued to get worse. And the retail theft went through the roof. Other issues of quality of life, we all know. There's Ward 8 borders Ward 3. You cross the street, we're quote unquote different wards, but we're the same neighborhoods being affected. I have studied OPCs a lot. I would like to see, as has been brought up, the central district has the most services in the city. That is clear. There's a map in one of the presentations, and it is clear. I would like other parts of the city to be willing to help out by having additional shelters. We've already put up another shelter. If we're going to have the OPC, we do need to have it downtown, not on Church Street, but it needs to be downtown. And I know some people I know there's a lot of people don't want to hear that. But the reason for that, when we look at how OPCs work, is they have to be where the activity is happening. And there is no question that we are the epicenter of the drug crisis in Burlington, in Chittenden County, in the state, even though there are other municipalities who are often being affected. Brattleboro, Rutland, Barry, St. Albans. You're hearing the same sort of complaints and concerns because fentanyl is there too. The issue of having it where activity is already occurring is because a lot of people don't have cars. And if they did, we would not want them driving anyway. Needs to be somewhere where our CSOs, community service officers, our CSLs, community support liaisons, our police officers, the Howard Center street team, and any number of people who work in the library to keep people safe, need to be able to say, you can't do this here, but this is where you can go. If someone has to be transported, if they have to get on a bus and they're in withdrawal, they're not going. They're not going. And so there are certain facts and data that drive the decision of needing to be close to downtown, because the point is to get people off the street, because that's what we're all concerned about, reduce syringe litter, and establish relationships where maybe we can get someone to a moment of clarity where they consider getting additional help. So it does have to be nearby. If someone has to travel, they're not going to, not if they're starting to go into withdrawal. I would also say Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. I'm very glad that they have been chosen as the provider because they are experienced. They've been doing the work. They've already been operating on Bank Street, and they've done it well. They've done it so well that people haven't noticed or realized that they're there unless you are told. So I know that they're mindful of all of this, and they care about the community, and they care about making this successful. I'm deeply regretful at how long everything is taking. It's taking so long. We had to get legislation, and now we have, funding, and there's just been a lot. But I do believe that it is really necessary and will help us a lot, because I think I'm concerned about this summer, and I don't know anyone who lives or works downtown or visits downtown who isn't. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are quite a bit behind schedule, but I do think we covered our last item earlier in the meeting. So the thing we do need to get to before the end is the budget discussion. Our budget resets at the end of May. Is that right?
End of June.
End of June.
But
we need to make
everything,
a decision by May.
well, all of the paperwork from y'all needs to be into CETO by the end of May.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. We have had a request from Ward 5. Their NPA has overspent their budget a little bit. And so there's been a request. We haven't spent much of any of ours, although I guess we sent out a mailer last year that got applied to this year's budget. Neither here nor there. Anyways, we have quite a bit of money left. And so I think I would be inclined to help out Ward 5 with their budget overshoot. I think it's just shy of 500, it's $460-ish. We have 20. Yeah, I know you told me this like an hour ago, but we have 2,500-ish. 21. Thank you. And I don't foresee us spending $1,500 by June.
No, but the question is, have any of the other wards sort of indicated they could help in some way, or are they all
whole budget overshoot?
Yeah.
Okay.
You are not the first ward that's been asked.
Good to know. So I guess I would entertain discussion about what we would like to spend the money on. I think one idea was to create a flyer for the new residents of Ward 8 that were formerly of other districts and wards pre-redistricting. So we can make flyers for those people and go door knocking to, generate a little bit more community engagement and outreach. But I guess I'd be shocked if flyers cost $1,500, but I suppose we could get really nice ones. Anyways, I would be happy to take comment.
So we would still have $1,000. You said there's 20.
Yeah, 15.
Does the money end at the end of the budget year? Like, if you don't spend it, I mean, I
It
used to work in a
disappears.
school. Like, if you don't spend it, you lose it.
it goes
Yeah.
away?
Goes away.
Yeah, it doesn't carry over, doesn't
Right,
roll
that's what
over.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't know what the budget will be for next year.
It's probably going to be the same as this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It hasn't been like
So-
100% confirmed, but
Funding cuts expected. Doesn't the NPA money come from CETO? And doesn't part of it come from the HUD grant?
I don't know about that. I don't
Okay.
think so.
It's the general fund. Yes. City's general.
Okay.
We were talking earlier, I think, probably unofficially before the meeting began, just kind of chatting. And one of the things that Ryan mentioned, which I think is really important, is to identify the residents who were bumped out of Ward 6, for example, and into Ward 8. I'm one of those. There are many others. And what is it? The other ward is Ward 2, or there's another ward where this occurred, where some people, 3, were moved into Ward 8. If we could identify those permanent residents and at the same time do the outreach to the younger people, as you were suggesting earlier, at the universities, we could have a nice diverse age sort of integrated mix of people getting involved. And it might be a way also to generate some agenda, items and interest. So I think that appropriating or allocating some money to that purpose is really important. And the question is, how do we go about finding those people, identifying those people, compiling a list, and then either getting flyers out or knocking on doors, whatever it is we have to do. We might want to go to our neighbors and ask them to help with the door knocking project, just to kind of divide things up. I don't imagine we're not citywide, we're relatively confined, area. I think we could probably manage that.
Just ask, what are some examples of what the money is used for? Ryan gave us a good one, the request for the funds, and you gave us a good one, but I'm new to this, so I'm curious of.
Yeah, it's mostly outreach, and materials for the meeting, whether that be food or what have you. There's a certain set of rules on what you can and cannot spend it on.
Yes.
I don't know them off the top of my head. But yeah, it's mostly for like outreach and materials provided at the meetings.
Thank you. I'm curious, since you have to formulate these meetings and meet people, would it be helpful to you to have money allocated to have a meeting with business leaders and have food or something like that as part of this outreach? Because you need agenda things.
I mean, I think it'd be helpful. There are some pretty strict parameters about what we can spend the money on. I would be happy to explore whether or not a business related meeting could be fund appropriate.
If it helps you.
Yeah, no, I think it would be. Yeah.
Make more work.
But
do you know what the new boundaries are? There was so much discussion and change, and I tried to follow the redistricting, but do you know like exactly what streets are the border streets specifically?
not off the top of my head, but I can look at the maps. And
Yep. So in the southwest corner, it's Maple and South Winooski. That goes up to Pearl Street. So that includes King, Main, College, Bradley Buell, and then the southern side of Pearl. That extends across to, I believe, South Williams, or is it South Prospect? Definitely South Williams.
I think Williams, yeah. It's a funky shaped ward.
So there was,
And then
it used to end right at Main Street. So now there is a big chunk south of Main Street. That is now part of Ward 8. I actually have a map of the old Ward 8 and the new Ward 8 that I can pull out. And we can identify some of the streets.
Yeah, 'cause Ward 3 got extended to include part of King Maple. There's a bunch of streets that are cut up. Church Street's cut up. Yeah.
I think I'm less concerned about figuring out which streets got added or taken away. I think it's more of just finding the people to go flyering. Yeah.
Is
There's
Memorial
a few neighborhoods in there too, like yours.
is Memorial Auditorium in 8 or 3?
8.
8.
That's what I thought. So I mean, there's that whole big development. I mean, that would be like for a future meeting, inviting those gentlemen that are spearheading it and like what their ideas are, because that's going to super impact our ward. So that's just another thought for a future
The
meeting.
developers.
Yeah, the developers.
That's a good
That
thing.
we could have I just feel like, as I said earlier, the benefit of being a small group is having this one-on-one versus, like a big thing at City Hall. You could have a greater interchange with these people that are affecting our city.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd throw the old Y into that as well.
Right.
It's a good.
Also in Ward 8.
So that was an 8. Yeah, I just.
When you go to the city's website and you click on the city clerk's treasurer's office and then elections, there's a link to maps. And you can just bring up the wards you want to look at, and you can kind of zoom in and see the different boundaries.
I guess I'm just thinking about like timelines here. So it sounds like we're in April. Our next meeting would be in May. And then generally the the NPA should usually take off June, July, August. Is that right? And they come back in September. Is that always the case? Or like, I feel like I'm a little like, I want to keep our momentum kind of. And I'm like, I'm here. I'm ready to meet in the summer. I'm down to door knock. I mean, is it possible for us to like, I don't know how people feel about that.
Steering committee. When it was together with Ward 1, and we used to meet through the summer.
Okay.
Occasionally we would not meet in August, but we definitely met in June.
Yeah.
Charlie?
So like wards 4 and 7, they've met for 15 years, 12 months of a year until last year. So that's one thing. A second thing is, so you can talk about spending money, but you need enthusiastic steering committee members in order to put a plan together and to execute it. So that's one thing that this particular steering committee is challenged with, because you don't have very many steering committee members, et cetera. The last thing is that on July 1st, you get $3,000 more dollars. So you can try to desperately spend all your money in the short term, but you don't necessarily have to do that because you're about to get $3,000 more dollars. So
We have street signs. They are
Your,
not often put up, but they are in my garage. Yes. Yes. And I think they could use some updates with I think it might still be wards 1 and 8 yeah.
because
Oh no, maybe they're not. Maybe it's the banner that's wards 1 and 8. I don't know.
they made up with 40 split off from Ward 1.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to take a look at
Yeah.
them. Yeah. But we do have signs. Yes.
I was just going to suggest that that would be a good thing to verify, because that's something that you can use the money you have now for. And then to the idea of handing out flyers, like design something and go ahead and get that printed so that you're using what's in this budget year. And then you can kind of spend, if you think about when you want the next meetings to be, and you kind of promote that on the flyer and then kind of get those handed out. I know I could certainly help out the Central District City Councilors were thinking about doing like a check-in. So we're going to be out there handing flyers, and I know it's kind of like campaign lit, but not a campaign. Like, why do we only go out when we're campaigning? I think we kind of want to go out when we're not campaigning and check the pulse and be outside in better weather. It's hard to get people, make people open their door when it's like 10 degrees out. But yeah, I think you could get volunteers to help get that out. Maybe a block party, like Ward 3 in King Maple is talking about doing a block party. And so just another idea.
Did you say, did I hear you right? Did you say you hand out flyers for monthly meetings or just this? Or
I think from what you were talking about earlier, I think you could definitely benefit from handing out flyers and
rather
just
than
really
putting up
getting
signs,
people.
just-
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be good for you to make sure you have both. Yeah. That you have current signs that are for Ward 8, since the wards are now separate.
Are we supposed to be voting on the,
I am looking for a motion to where to allocate the funds.
or that?
Shall we vote on the helping out the,
Yeah, some specificity to that motion might help.
Support donating the money to Ward 5, was it? Okay. 15, how much out of our budget? $1,500 is what they're asking?
460-ish.
yeah, but a little less, yeah.
500.
Yeah, just shy of that. Yeah. All right. So we would like to help out Ward 5 and then
Anybody second? Need a second?
second for that.
second.
Cool. All those in favor? Aye. Cool. Opposed? Cool. All right.
Just to clarify, that leaves us with like 1,000,
1,500.
or it leaves us with 1,500.
Yes,
Okay.
which we
so
can then
1,500 left.
allocate at our next
We're good.
meeting. Yes.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So that,
Yeah.
that's good.
Our next meeting is in late May, so.
Yeah, that's kind of the last shot we'll have at spending it. So that'll be one of the agenda items.
Okay, so not to like put pressure, any more unneeded pressure on the steering committee, but given how late that's going to end up being, I would recommend you come with a proposal and do outreach to the email list leading up to the meeting so that we can have a proposal in front of us, that we can workshop together, just so we're not like, going into this without a plan, I guess, because you'll have to like send this in like the day after or something.
Yeah. Cool. Christy, you've had your hand up.
Apologize. I'm so appreciative to be here. I'm curious, can some of that funding be used to buy paint for graffiti projects?
No.
No. Okay. Sorry.
I'm happy to support steering committee around graphic design needs for flyers or signs. Also, it might be interesting to look at, I think Christine made a zine about what the NPAs are for, maybe even just doing a reprint of those. I'm also happy to help, like, I know there's a little bit more work to cut those up and make them look nice, but that would be nice lit to be able to hand out if we do a knock. So
Have those just like up in the office in a stack?
We sure do.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
are we allowed to have them? Some, maybe?
Like right this second?
Oh, no, but like if we were, should we
Yeah.
account for budgeting for printing that, or is that something we could?
I know for a fact we have zines. I don't think that we have like the big poster that we had previously, but we still have the zines. Like we have like a lot of the
Okay,
zines.
cool.
Like so many.
Sweet.
In like every language that you could possibly think of.
I will endeavor to have those at our next meeting.
I can bring them.
Cool. All right. The last item I had on the agenda was community engagement and May meeting preparation, but yes.
Well, I was just gonna say, would it be appropriate to like make a motion to say whether or not we want to go through the summer? And say like, I just so we know, is like, is May it, or is like,
I don't think it requires a motion.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that's just.
I don't
Let's just
know
try,
how
okay.
it's really. I just know.
Yes.
I just know that like most of the wards are taking the summer off. I don't know if they like have to. But I would say like from what I've gathered, all of them, except potentially us, would be not meeting during the summer.
I think we should meet in the summer at least. But I think that I don't think we need a motion for it, but I think just if we do outreach and we can at least get a response from, I'd say, one Ward 8 resident saying that they want to come in and talk about something, I would be in favor. I would come in so I could hear them. So I think it would be fine.
I think most take July and August.
Yeah.
Because it kind of corresponds with the school summer vacations.
It just feels challenging because I think we landed this way last year where it's like, oh, well, we want to get the stuff to do outreach. But then like, if I'm going to go door knock and be like, and then come in 3 months from now, that feels weird. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Any more comments, questions, concerns? Are we good to adjourn? A motion to adjourn?
One thing. We didn't say when our next meeting is going to be.
Oh,
Do you have a date?
May 22nd.
That's the Memorial Day. Thursday before Memorial Day weekend, right?
Yep. Anyways, thank you all for coming.
Oh, well.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah. Second, those in favor. Sorry.
Can we change the date, like that it's the fourth Thursday in the future? I don't mean now, like
Yeah,
the meeting's over, but how did you guys come to pick that date?
I'll be honest, it was the date that I just entered. That was the date that was.
I think they're like pretty set because there's 8 wards. So it pretty much takes up the whole month.
Okay. So there are a lot of other days that are like available. Got it. Okay. Just was curious.
So if you ever have a fifth Thursday, that's available. If you have a fifth Wednesday, that's available. 2 of the first 4 Wednesdays are taken. So there's basically always 2 Wednesdays unless an all wards meeting takes up one of those Wednesdays.
Speaking of that, is there an all wards
Next week.
Yep, next Tuesday.
on Wednesday?
Next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh,
Brian, you should invite Chief Burke.
Are we done meeting?
Yes,
adjourned.
I think
Yes.
we're
Okay.
We adjourned.